Good morning, everyone. I want to remind you that this talk is being recorded and will be on Great Tree Zen Women's Temple YouTube page, which should be in the chat. And also there's a link to practice dana and to donate. And I'll share a brief statement about dana. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of dana paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely. And this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment of expectation when opportunities arise. Those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. You can either do this directly or through Great Tree, and we will pass it on to them. So if you would like to donate to Andrea, you can donate through the link and just send an email specifying that it's for Andrea. Thank you. You're muted, Ann.
Okay, so this morning we will have the third talk by Andrea and unfortunately, last one of this series on the light that shines through infinity, commentaries on Katagiri Roshi's book, which she edited. A little bit about her background. Andrea began practicing at the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center in 1978 after practicing transcendental meditation for several years. She became a student of Dainin Katagiri Roshi and received the lay Buddhist precepts from him in 1980. She heads the Dainin Katagiri Archives and is the author of the biographical essay, Ceaseless Effort, the Life of Dainin Katagiri, which is available on the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center website. Andrea has edited 2 books of his teachings. One, Each Moment is the Universe in 2007, and The Light That Shines Through Infinity in 2017. In 2020, she was recognized as a lay teacher by Ted O'Toole. Andrea is a retired research librarian, blessed with a large family of children, stepchildren, and grandchildren. And just want to add that hearing her previous 2 talks, I now have some awareness of how much of herself she brought to producing this book from her practice and study. And I just want to express my deep appreciation. So now I think, Tejo, you'd like to say something.
Yes, I have been thinking in the last few weeks about how much this book and also Andrea's talks have brought up the spirit of Katagiri Roshi's practice and teaching of Dogen Zenji. And I'm really grateful for that. I feel like because Andrea practiced with Katagiri Roshi, we were all able to pick up the spirit of his practice. But for me, it's been hard to kind of awaken that again. And I just want to express my appreciation. I feel a lot of gratitude, even though Andrea mentioned last week that she's not speaking for Katagiri Roshi, she's speaking from her own understanding. That understanding was awakened, I think, originally by Katagiri Roshi, and somehow Andrea has been able to bring that forth again through this book and through these talks. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tejo and Anne and Trey. Yes, this is the third talk, my last morning with you. I hope you're all doing well, doing okay with whatever your day is bringing to you. So in my first talk, I introduced the idea of Buddha as the original energy of life, and that the Buddhist triple treasure of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are aspects of that original energy. Last week, I talked about Dharma as a dynamic, functioning activity of emptiness, impermanence, and interdependent co-origination that together forms the material universe and fills it with Buddha nature. Today, I want to say something about Sangha and compassion. And I'm thinking of Sangha in the biggest possible sense, as all beings in the universe collectively forming a huge community. We collectively exist moment by moment as the appearance of the original energy of life, Buddha, in the world or as the world of form. It means that even though we exist in our own separate independent bodies, we are all just interconnected parts of Buddha's one huge body. So we, all of you, are Buddha. That wisdom is the foundation of compassion. One of the remarkable teachings in this book, to me anyway, was the way that Katagiri Roshi linked compassion with the energy of life. He said that the material world that we live in, where it seems we encounter so much suffering, is in itself an expression of Buddha's compassion. I'm going to come back to this a little bit later. But first, I want to introduce something about energy and light. I told you in the beginning that the phrase radiant light of the Buddhas emits throughout the Dharma world was an inspiration to me for seeking the meaning of light and energy in Buddhism. So in thinking about the universe as Buddha's body, I want to look at how energy and light create material form. In part 3 of the book, Body and Mind, in chapter 10, Katagiri Roshi says this: formative energies are always springing up from the source of being, according to causes and conditions functioning in the moment. When they do, something happens. There is an event. Life. Life is just an event. From moment to moment, particles, atoms, and molecules arise from the vast openness of space all at once, come together and form the world of phenomena: trees, birds, flowers, planets, and your human body. Katagiri continues, particles cannot appear and become matter by themselves. In order for them to come together and take a particular form of being that you can perceive, certain energies must be there. If energy is not there, all the particles will separate and return to emptiness because they do not have their own power to stay together. So if we make a scientific explanation, we may say that matter and energy are the same. In Buddhism, we say all are Buddha. So I turned to science for another point of view on this. And that point of view is electromagnetism. which is the force that allows things to exist in physical form. So if you keep in mind what I just quoted from Katagiri Roshi, this is, to me anyway, I hope to you, interesting. And it turns out that the molecules in our bodies are bound together by light energy. So this is how I understand it. Atoms are made up of a nucleus of positively charged protons, which is surrounded by a cloud of negatively charged electrons. The protons and electrons, being oppositely charged, attract each other. To explain this attraction, quantum physicists think that both protons and electrons spit out short-lived bursts of light energy called photons. Photons are particles of energy originally produced in the sun, which we see as light. In an atom, oppositely charged particles absorb each other's light energy, and this draws the particles together magnetically. This attractive force is responsible for atoms holding together as matter. And if electromagnetism were not working, matter would dissolve. It's electromagnetism that makes things feel solid, although nothing really is solid because all matter is made of particles that are constantly moving. Everything vibrates to some extent. When atoms vibrate, light energy in the infrared spectrum is emitted as heat according to how fast the particles inside them are moving. The light that emits is in a range of visible light that our human eyes cannot recognize, so we cannot see it. But everything in the universe emits radiant light. Everything is shining. In science, we have photons from the sun, and in Mahayana Buddhism, we have the magnificent image of Vairochana Buddha, the great sun Buddha, the Buddha of great illumination, whose light shines into every corner of the universe. You may remember his name from the Soto meal chant we recite during Sesshin. Vairochana is the primordial Buddha. He sits on a lotus throne and emits radiant light. In some depictions, there is a circular halo behind and centered at his head, and another larger one centered at his heart. The universe is the very body of this Buddha, and his presence shines sublimely forth from every particle in the universe. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, Vairochana is the personification of Dharmakaya, the absolute form of Shakyamuni Buddha, whose body is infinitely large and whose life is infinitely long. So in Wayan Buddhism, Vairochana is understood as the embodiment of emptiness, shunyata. Vairochana is sometimes described as the generative force behind all phenomena in the universe. So I think there's always a question when you hear something like this. Is Vairochana a metaphor or is he a phenomenon? Science says things are actually radiating light, but you can't perceive it. What if you could see that light from certain states of mind? What if a warm heart is more than a figure of speech and an actual energy that you can transmit to others? Many people say that this is true. Katagiri Roshi says, the stream of basic energy constantly penetrates every inch of your life, helping and supporting you. Anytime, anywhere, you can open your heart and listen to its voice. Many statues of Buddha show a halo behind his head. We say Buddha is watching over all sentient beings because he is very compassionate. This is radiant light. So now we come back to the idea that the universe is itself an expression of Buddha's compassion, which all beings receive as our Buddha nature. With that in mind, I think Zen practice could be approached as a way of using our bodies to tap into Buddha's compassion. In part 4, Wisdom and Compassion, in chapter 14, Katagiri Roshi describes Buddha's compassion as the source of our existence. So here's an excerpt. When you reach the bottom of your life and see the ultimate nature of being, you realize there is nothing there. Well, there is only one thing there, motion. That movement is the basic nature of being, the rhythm of life itself. The movement of nothingness gives you a certain kind of energy. It shoots up from the basic nature of your being, and you receive it as the energy of your own life. That is enlightenment, we say, but strictly speaking, it is Buddha's compassion. It is the great compassion you already possess. Buddha's compassion is very deep in your life. It is the form of your own life. Your body and mind are produced by compassion. Your life, the life of everything you see and everything you hear, are nothing but the total manifestation of Buddha's warm, compassionate heart. And this is still Katagiri's voice. So whatever you may feel, whatever you may think, whatever you may do, Buddha's compassion is there. You cannot see it, but your life, everyone's life, is constantly supported by Buddha's compassion. When you trust in Buddha's compassion, this is called faith. I think the appearance of the word faith here is kind of a surprise for us. It seems to come from some other religion where we might be told just to accept something on faith. But that is not what's going on here. It is not the Buddhist way. This is how Katagiri Roshi explains faith. Buddhist faith is the activity of constantly seeking and basking in Buddha's compassion. For the English word faith, Buddhism uses the word bodhicitta, bodhi mind. Faith as bodhicitta is not the usual idea of faith. Bodhicitta is the state of mind in which you realize that you are one being, interpenetrated by all beings. So for me, this perspective on faith is something that Katagiri Roshi brings to Zen that allows me to understand Buddhism as a religion. There's a feeling of warmth and caring to his teaching that imparts a wonderful flavor to Katagiri Zen and balances the discipline aspect of formal Zen practice. He really understands my human longing to bask in Buddha's warm, compassionate heart. Katagiri Roshi was once interviewed by a magazine and asked to say what Buddhism is. In other words, is it a religion, a philosophy, an activity, or what? He said it was a way of life based on wisdom and compassion. In chapter 15, he says, wisdom is a deep understanding of impermanence. Life is coming and going from moment to moment. Compassion is a deep understanding of interdependent co-origination. All lives are interconnected. He goes on, in Buddhism, wisdom and compassion is a term for love. But that love is not the usual sense of love. By wisdom and compassion, you can communicate with others, you can accept others, or you can forgive others. That is love. Love is the very serious and also the very soft basis of human existence, from which you can take a deep breath, breathing like the wind blows, breathing naturally on grass in the field. Katagiri Roshi had another way of teaching compassion that was, I think, quite poignant. He said that the word compassion consists of two terms, maitri and karuna. Maitri is friendliness or kindness, and karuna is sadness. He also said moaning. This definition is a little confusing, but in Japanese, the word for compassion, jihi, is composed of two Chinese characters. Ji is the character for the desire to give happiness to all beings, and he is the character for sadness. Katagiri Roshi said, ever since I became a monk, I wanted to know why there is sadness in compassion instead of just kindness. I didn't understand it. Finally, I learned that to understand it, you have to taste that sadness. I think tasting that sadness begins with wisdom. Wisdom is realizing that our original nature is emptiness and that life as a whole is one unified being. Wisdom also knows that the human body and mind build walls and veils that separate and hide that original state of being from our human awareness. Katagiri Roshi says, when you experience oneness, you realize how minutely your consciousness is vibrating, constantly creating a gap between you and eternity, constantly separating you from others. And a deep moan of sadness arises from the depths of your life. I think we can understand karuna as that moaning. So I say that separation is our original suffering called dukkha, which we know from Buddhist Four Noble Truths. We call it suffering or dissatisfaction, but a better word might be sorrow or perhaps grief. But naming it doesn't help the profound sense of loss and longing that we bear from having a body and mind that hides our original nature and only tells us that we are alone and vulnerable. Here's a different take on the sense of aloneness. It's from the original Star Trek TV series. There was an episode, this is a long time ago. You may have seen it or you may have seen it in syndication. But in this episode, the Starship Enterprise gives a lift to the Medusan ambassador. Medusans are a race of beings that have evolved into formlessness. They exist without bodies. The ambassador arrives in a box, which is carried by an assistant who's blind, which is a necessary precaution because if any other species look directly at a Medusan, they go crazy. One time the lid of the box opens a little bit and we see that the Medusan exists as green sparkling lights. So inevitably a crisis develops that only the Medusan can resolve. But it requires him to communicate with the crew. So he and Spock have a mind meld so that the Medusan can speak through Spock. And in Spock's body, the Medusan says, "Oh, the aloneness. You are so alone. You live out your lives in this shell of flesh, self-contained, separate. How lonely you are. How terribly lonely." I think this sense of loss is really the source of our spiritual longing and our quest to restore what is missing in our life. We want to recover a deep sense of connection and belonging to life. Katagiri Roshi described that profound human sadness as the deep moan present in everyone's life, a deep and limitless moan that is beyond words, coming from the bottom of your life. Everyone has this moan because we want to know something more than our intellectual understanding of life. That is why we practice. So it seems to me that compassion arises from knowing that everyone and everything has the same moan, and then opening your heart and expressing your understanding in a kind way. When you recognize your own suffering in others, you respond to them from a deep sense of togetherness. Opening to others can relieve their suffering and also relieve your own suffering at the same time. You save each other because you are no longer completely separated. For a moment, you feel your life and another's life are connected, and there is love. You can offer compassion to yourself by bringing forth an awareness of your big self and letting it take care of your small self. Let it offer love and belonging to that small self. This teaching on giving kindness to suffering encourages us to not look away from the deep sadness of life, but to see it from a broader point of view. One that understands that aloneness is something true that arises along with our human life. Then we can accept it and follow it back to the truth that is always present and available to us as our Buddha nature. Katagiri Roshi gave us a wonderful practice that we can do anytime or anywhere. It's a subtle way that we can invoke a sense of intimacy and interconnection with the world around us. It's called Kano Doko. Kano Doko is an everyday practice that I think is related to the personal behavior style of Soto Zen monks, which is called Menmitsu. Menmitsu is a dignified way of behaving, characterized by concentrating oneself on paying soft, loving attention to the details of one's behavior. It's a way of doing things with a quiet strength, as if enacting an important ceremony. It's a way, it can be described as attention to detail, intimacy with everything, soft subtleness, and warm-hearted, thorough diligence. Just seeing someone who behaves like that has a way of calming your mind. I remember so well the impact that Katagiri Roshi had on me when I first met him. I think I intuitively understood what he was teaching just by his way of being present. He modeled a way of being human that I had never seen before. Now I understand that this way of being human was shown to him by his teacher as a Soto practice of deportment that's been handed down to us from Dogen. Dogen had a phrase, Menmitsu no kafu, meaning that a very careful and considerate way of being intimate with everything is the family style of Soto Zen. Zendo etiquette informs the quiet and dignified way we walk, handle our oryoki, eating bowls, fold our rakasus and cases, or bow to our cushions, all of us doing the same thing with the same kindly attention. This is following Menmitsu no Kafu. Kano Doko is a version of that practice style that is suited to everyday life. It is immediately enjoyable in its own right. And it's also a good training in the habit of relaxing your frontal lobe and opening your heart. Instead of telling you about it, I want to close by giving you Katagiri Roshi's words on it. And this is a fairly long excerpt, so I hope you can just enjoy it. And recall that when Katagiri Roshi uses the term all sentient beings, he's referring to everything that exists in the material world, all phenomenon, animate and inanimate, even thoughts and feelings are beings. So here are Katagiri Roshi's words. When you cook a meal, a vegetable is separate from you. You are you, and vegetable is vegetable. But on the other hand, all sentient beings are supported by the lively energy of life. The great energy that supports your life also supports the vegetable's life. If you open yourself to the vegetable, you can get into the vegetable's life, and the vegetable can come into your life. Then you and the vegetable can communicate. When you see the vegetable as an expression of the universal energy inhering in everything, there is a kind of inspiration that goes in and out between you and the universe. That spiritual communion is called Kano Doko. Kan means receive or feel. No is respond. Do is path or way. Ko is crossing. You can not explain it, but you feel good. Immediately you feel what you really are. Then, when you look at a vegetable, you see many beings in the realm of the vegetable's life. That is the real life of the vegetable, Buddha's life, we say. You cannot see the energy inhering in a vegetable directly, but still you can take care of it in a concrete way. How? Very simple. Deal with a vegetable with warm-heartedness, expressing the lively energy of your life and respecting the lively energy that the vegetable also possesses. Accept that a vegetable is Buddha. Then open yourself and extend your life toward the vegetable's life. Just walk with it. Very naturally, you handle the vegetable with compassionate attention. This is very simple Zen practice. If you think of this practice with the frontal lobe of human knowledge, you don't believe it, because human knowledge cannot see the panoramic picture of one life working with the universal life of all sentient beings. So relax your frontal lobe and just take care of your daily living. Even if you don't understand Zen teaching intellectually, still you can pay kind, compassionate attention to the things around you. Pay attention to others, not just yourself. This is the practice of egolessness. It's a practical way to live every day. Sooner or later, you will taste the energy of life. In Zen practice, the main target for you to aim at is making that energy alive in your everyday life. How? Open yourself. Go beyond your individual life and see the big picture of your life. To practice in this way is to become a universal human. It is to always think in a universal way, to walk in freedom and give universal love to all beings throughout heaven and earth. I don't know what else I can add to that expression. This practice is something that can become just your natural way of conducting yourself in the way you walk, just the way that you touch things and handle things. It allows you to calm down and just feel a basic sense of your own presence, which has, there's a satisfaction involved with it that gives you a feeling that it doesn't really matter what you're doing. It's just that you're doing it in this way. And for me, there's a sense of being glad to be alive in doing it, that it's its own evidence that life is worthwhile. So to wrap up, in these talks, I've attempted to give you a philosophical framework that you can use to orient yourself to Katagiri Roshi's teachings. In the beginning of the book, I said, gave his words that that our life is precious and that there's a vivid energy supporting our life. So I hope that we can come back to your understanding what that was, and that your life truly is precious, and how to appreciate yourself and to share your life with others. It's been really wonderful to immerse myself in Katagiri Roshi's teachings again this way. And I really want to thank you, Tejo, and all of you for being a Sangha who is following Katagiri Roshi's teachings through Tejo. That's it. I just want to thank you. I've really enjoyed thinking about these things with you, and it's been very meaningful for me. So there's time now if you have any more questions or comments or something you'd like to ask me or talk about. Let's do that for a while. Thank you.